Thank you for joining us. I'm Michael Miller with Live with Miami's Community News. And today we're going to learn a whole lot more about real estate. And our guest today is Ana Pol from Pol Realty. You're the founder and the real estate broker for the firm.
Correct.
All right.
Yes.
Well, thank you for being here. All right. And real estate in Miami, in particular, Miami-Dade County, fluctuates all the time. We say, okay, should you buy or sell your property at Christmas time during the summer? Do you do it in May because you're going to move the kids to school? But really, at the end of the day, when people decide to buy or sell, what are some of the factors that go into that?
Well, I have been doing this for 18 years. So you can imagine I've gone through all sorts of real estate market fluctuations here in Miami and everywhere. So the main thing is what you said, is you have to buy or sell when it's the time for you, when it's the correct time for you, when you have a new baby, when you are getting divorced, when some kind of situation change or you just want to change. Yeah. So you need to move regardless of what the market is at that moment.
And we know that moving is traumatic.
Yes.
You're selling your lifelong home that you've been there, and you're moving into a new home that you haven't been in, or maybe it's a new part of the country or the part of the county. So I'll bet sometimes you counsel people as they move along, as they get nervous. So how do you handle that with your clients?
Oh, it's so funny. We are psychologists, we are housekeepers, we are assistants, but mainly psychologists. I mean, we have to do so much hand-holding and trying to reassure our clients, because we do this for a living, so we've seen a million scenarios in all transactions. But for a buyer, it's their own situation, so yes, they haven't seen any others.
So Ana, let's talk about when people are getting ready to move.
Yes.
What are some of the factors they look at when deciding where to buy?
Well, if they still go to the office for work, mainly being close to their work, especially here in Miami, where the traffic, we know it's a little challenging. So you have to try and be close to work or close to some kind of transportation that will take you to work easily.
So you weren't born into real estate.
No.
You did some things before that.
Yes.
So tell us about that.
Yes. I am actually a computer engineer. I have a master's in biomedical engineering. So I was mainly...
Wait. Let's start again. A master's in what?
Yeah, biomedical engineering.
So what does that mean? Well,
in my case, since I was a computer engineer, I was in the area back then, I don't want to say when, but that you could use computers to analyze a lot of the medical factors. For example, I worked in looking how much my thesis was in how the radio frequency radiation for the Air Force was affecting the pilot's eyes, for example. You could digitize the cells and look at that and see if it was changing, I did that, but a million years ago. So I worked as that for about 15 years, but when I had kids, I was traveling so much for that work. I was a business consultant for a computer firm.
So how did you go from using your brain a lot, all right, on certainly a much higher level than the other person sitting here. How did you go from that to this really a much more comforting field and assisting people directly?
Well, when I had children, I didn't want to be traveling so much for work. I was working, 14-hour days and traveling a lot. And although I had a wonderful nanny, I didn't want my kids to be raised by a nanny. So what I did, I started investing in real estate myself. I said, well, let me try and, make a living that way, because it would be, it's a lot more flexible work. So I took the courses and I did everything for me. And I liked it so much. And I was giving advice to friends and, where to invest and what to do, that I decided, okay, I think I can do this for a living.
So you started out by investing for yourself.
Yes.
So when you deal with buyers, you have family buyers that have been, maybe it's their second, third, fourth home. Then you have investors who it's just, I don't want to say just an investment, but they're not going to be living in it, or probably not. And then you have first-time buyers. Mm-hmm. What is that like when you deal with, the first-time buyer, maybe students that got a debt this much, and then you have the 70-year-old says, I'm out, I'm moving to Ocala. And then, of course, the investors. Tell us about the approach with each one of those types.
Well, it's completely different, of course, because with the investor, they want to see what the return on investment is for their property. So we have to do a whole analysis. So that's where the brain comes in again. So you have to see, which location, what are the absorption rates, how much rent they can get, and based on
All the things that when the mom and dad had got 3 kids want to be in a good school district couldn't care about.
Exactly. So then if you're looking for a first-time home buyer that maybe doesn't even have kids yet, but they always want to be close to a good school, that's also mainly why attracted me to Pinecrest or Weston.
So what are some of the misconceptions that people have about buying property, whether it's commercial property or a home, and whether it's an investor or a homeowner? What are some of the misconceptions?
Well, some people are scared because it's a huge investment. But what people don't know, maybe say, oh, no, I'm going to put it in stocks, or I'm going to put it here. Historically, real estate has been the best investment for years, more than stocks, more than CDs, money markets, anything, because the bricks are always going to be there, regardless of the market fluctuates. Even when the market went down in 2008, like it did here, now it's a lot higher than it was then.
Yes.
So even when it goes really down, it's usually going to go back up.
So what sort of questions does the homeowner that goes, you say, listen, I'm looking for a house, and let's say you sort of found the house for them, and they're okay with it, but what questions do they ask about running the household property, meaning the grass and the roof and all that stuff and the insurance and the taxes? Tell us about that.
Well, that's a very good question, because a lot of people just look at the mortgage. Oh, no, I can pay a $3,000 mortgage. Well, that's not you have to pay. So we want to make sure we do a very, very thorough buyer consultation. We ask them, even what's your favorite type of ice cream? I mean, we ask everything because we want to make sure that they know what are all the expenses they're going to have. What you said, insurance, maintenance, you always have to put aside for maintenance, because if you're renting, you're used to, picking up the phone and having a landlord fix things. But when it's your house, you're always fixing something.
We recently bought some web work from an outside vendor. And he said, well, what colors do you want in it? I said, I don't know. He says, well, let's do this. I'm going to send you a list of colors. Mark off the ones you don't want. And then it got really simple. Here are the 4 colors that are left. So do you ever ask somebody, listen, who's going to be taking care of this yard? Oh, I'm going to do it. I'm going to mow it. All right. Oh, no, you're not going to do it. So you're going to hire somebody to do it. Okay, here it is.
Exactly.
All right. Typically, homes have inspections by a qualified inspector. Is that typically done at the time or near when it's being sold? I mean, when it's being offered, or does that happen when there's the buyer's there says, I want a home inspection, the one that was done 3 months ago, I don't care about? How does that work?
Yes, we always recommend our buyers, when in the contract here in Florida, you have an inspection period. So even if the house is sold as is, which means that the seller is not obligated to fix anything, the buyer has an inspection period, usually 7 days, 10 days, where you bring your inspector and they go through everything in the house, foundation, appliances, roof, plumbing, to make sure that everything is in good condition.
So let's say you're buying the house, and then you have your inspector comes out, and he says, well, listen, the paint is in average condition, all right? Or the roof is 17 years old and got 3 years left. How does the buyer have that conversation? I'm not going to spend the $50,000 to fix it unless what? What might the seller do? Or did they say, I don't care, I'm not going to reimburse you for the roof or to repaint it?
Well, yeah, that's where the negotiation comes, and that's where your agent works with the other agent to make sure that the buyer can get as much as possible.
Obviously, one of the advantages of having a middle person,
correct,
is that you don't get stupid.
Right.
You want it, and then you lose your temper.
Exactly.
On either end.
Exactly.
So I'll bet you've listened to sellers and buyers complain bitterly about the other side.
Yes.
All the time it has to be. Yes.
And what we do is take emotion out of the equation. Sometimes you see that they're fighting for $500 when in a $700,000 home. I'm like, I'll give you the $500. It hasn't been the first time, because it's just emotions.
Yeah, and that's human nature.
Yes, exactly.
So tell us about a really pleasant experience when you were showing a couple of family at a home and they walk in the house. Tell us about some of the emotions that go on with the buyers and some of the things they've said.
Well, what I love is when they come in and they can see themselves in the home. Like they would go, oh, I would put my couch here, we can do the playroom here, or we can we can tear down that wall and open it up, when they can visualize themselves in the home. I absolutely love it. And if I can give them ideas, again, I've seen some models several times. So if I go there, right now I'm selling a house in a community that it's, pretty much the houses are pretty much the same. So I've seen what they've done. So I can try to give them ideas. And I love that. I love that part.
So, Anna, have you had clients that they walk in and they go, okay, we'll take it?
Oh, no. I wish. No.
So tell us how buyers who've been through major storms, you were way too young, but Hurricane Andrew down here, destroyed a lot of people, and they were like so desperate to get into a place. So tell us about how past buying or selling experiences affects their future buying.
Oh gosh, all the time, especially if something like that happened, they're very adamant and looking like hurricane impact windows or the roof that is in good condition, the foundation, which is good, but I mean, here in Florida, I think you have to look into those things. Maybe
Yes.
if you're in somewhere else, they don't care that much. You see the houses built, with wood, and here it's bricks. So they look a lot into that.
And when people have been in their homes a long time, many people do major renovations without getting permits. That's sort of a common thing. So tell us about how that might affect the sale.
Well, it could affect the sale if they didn't do the permits, or if they do the permits and leave them open, for example. That's also a big no. You have to make sure if you do the permits to close them all. And if you didn't do the permits, if people ask about it, then you can be in trouble. Like if you do a kitchen renovation. Although in some counties or cities, for example, in Hialeah now, if they come and inspect, the city itself comes and inspects the property to make sure that you didn't do anything without a permit. And I don't know if that's going to be happening in other cities soon, but that's what they do.
When you say they come
there.
and inspect, you mean just arbitrarily?
No.
Oh, when it's for sale?
Right. When it's for sale,
They look it up.
they see that the home is for sale, and they come before the closing. That happened to me in a home in Hialeah. They had put a partition in the garage, and they made the seller take it down because it wasn't done with a permit and it wasn't legal.
So an open permit, explain what that means to the
okay.
person that doesn't know.
Okay, so for example, if you're doing your kitchen and your contractor is doing everything by the book and he's doing everything properly, they did all the inspections, but maybe they didn't, they did all the permits, but maybe they didn't go and do a last inspection that needed to be done. You know that you have to do like electricity and plumbing. So maybe they didn't do a last one. So the construction is all there because everything's recorded here in the city. And there's a permit that says, it's an open permit from 5 years ago. Well, you can't close until that is
And how
done.
does that get fixed?
The seller has to go to the county and ask for the inspection of that permit that it's.
It could be 5 years ago.
It could be 5 years ago, 10 years ago, whenever.
And then they're going to go out, and at that point, it's filled with furniture, and they got all the stuff. And
Well, if they have to break a wall, they would break a wall. If it has to be like some kind of wiring that they had to do and it wasn't inspected, but it has to be done.
Well,
or you can't close, or you shouldn't close.
Yes.
The buyer shouldn't close a house like that.
And so once somebody buys that home, they buy it with all the good stuff and all the not so good stuff.
Right.
Tell us about why people should have title insurance.
Oh, goodness, that's very important too. Because when you're closing, there's a title company that is the person that goes to the city and makes sure that there are no liens, that there's nothing wrong with the house. There's no one suing anybody. But something could have happened that it wasn't recorded or that they didn't see. And if you have title insurance, that's not going to be your fault. The new buyer's
title
fault.
insurance, you buy a policy for a certain amount of dollars.
Yes.
What is the connection between the amount of the policy and the price of the house?
Yes, it's a percentage of the amount.
It's a percentage of that.
Yes.
So if there was a problem, the insurance company says, okay, this is our maximum liability, let's say $1 million. So here's your $1 million. Do they get the house? The insurance company get the house? Or do they just fix it?
No, they fix it.
They fix the
problem. Yeah.
So I don't know what percentage of homes have problems on, but I would never buy a piece of property without title insurance.
Of course. That's what I tell everybody. You can't force them, but I wouldn't either.
So it'd be like driving your car around without insurance.
Yes.
You just never know when it's going to happen.
Exactly.
So let's talk, speaking of insurance, let's talk a little bit about windstorm insurance, liability insurance on homes, and fire. Many people say, well, just don't have insurance. I go, you mean windstorm insurance? Well, I said, you mean you can invite people to your house, right, over those rocks in your front yard, and they're going to come in, right, and they're going to fall, and then when they fall, they're going to break a leg, and you're not going to have insurance. So many people think they can go insurance free, but you've been doing this a long time. Somebody brings that up to you. What do you say to them?
Well, first of all, if you have a mortgage, you cannot go insurance free. Right. The lender is going to force you to have an insurance. And if you have the house home free, then absolutely, you have to have some type of insurance because, God forbid, especially here, with all the storms and like you said, if something happens to someone in your home, then you have to have some kind of liability.
So I'm curious as what has happened to home sales specifically because of the increase in the price of the insurance. So tell us about what may or didn't happen, may happen or didn't happen yet.
Well, it's happening now, especially in condos. They have raised the insurance so much to the actual condominiums that then they have to raise the condo associations.
So people, there's insurance on the structure,
correct,
right? And liability insurance, things like that you pay in common, meaning you pay a certain percentage of that. And then there's, of course, insurance on the inside of it, which is your own personal liability. And then maybe that it's a fire policy or thefts, things like that. And so we know it's gone up dramatically, but at some point, people buy those, whether it's rich investors, whether it's somebody going to buy the whole thing, and if there's enough votes, maybe they can buy it and tear it down. Is there anything that's in the works now for the citizens of Miami-Dade County or the state that says, okay, but in the year 2026, your rates are going to go down because the state's doing things? Do you hear any comments about this?
Well, they are trying. I haven't heard any specifically. Now that you mentioned that, it's funny. I have a meeting with an insurance company on Monday exactly to ask that. What plans do they have or do they know? Because it's just getting unaffordable. Some people can't buy a house basically because they can't afford the $10,000 a year that it's the homeowner's insurance.
Hurricane Andrew, $700 a year for my home insurance.
$700
a year, a year. All right.
Yeah, no, now it's like around, like for a house around here, could 10,000 I think is the average.
Yeah. So let's try to look to the future. What do you see happening in Miami-Dade County as far as the real estate market and as far as condos and as far as values of property?
Well, the values of property are going to be continuing to increase. Only this year, in 1 year, it's gone up 17%. Since 2020, it's been an exponential increase, which hasn't happened. I mean, it's always increased, but not at the speed that it has this last 4 years. And with all the companies that are coming to Miami, like a lot of tech companies, financial companies, Citadel is bringing I don't know how many people, and these are people, with high-paying jobs, and those people need homes. So I don't see it slowing anytime soon.
In the 80s and 90s, we had a lot of drug dealers that were here in Miami-Dade County, and they didn't care about the price of houses. So we'd go see it, and they didn't ever negotiate. They paid for it. There was no bank. So we had to compete with that.
Oh, my goodness.
And so now with all these rich people moving to Miami, it doesn't mean as much as if you've been here working for a living. So that $700,000 house could be $800,000 or $1 million because we need a place to go. We need to get the kids in school. We need to be in this area. So we see more and more of that is happening.
Right.
And when people are chatting with you, do they ask whether there's in their homes, whether it's on a septic tank and or on a sewer system? Does that come up? And whether on county water or a well?
Well, it doesn't come up too much, but I do tell them. I mean, we do know if it's if it's important to them, if it's in a septic or on a well. And I've done a lot in Southwest Ranches, which is all well water and septic, and people haven't complained. I mean, $1 million homes there.
And by the way, so Pinecrest had a lot of homes on well water for a long, long, long time. And I said, how ironic that is with our wealthy friends there, right? these several $1 million houses there on Wellwood. I chuckled all the time, and I think it's essentially taken care of or about to be taken care of. And they just did it so well and be able to take care of it. We know the county has over 100,000 homes that are on Wellwood.
Yeah.
The county, the state, the feds trying to take care of the ones that are bad. So when you the area you focus in is in Pinecrest.
Yes.
And so when they come down or they're looking around, do they also ask about some of the other areas other than Pinecrest, and where is that?
Well, yes, they usually, if they're looking in Pinecrest, they're usually looking for schools and like a quiet neighborhood and having, amenities and activities for families. So usually they look between Pinecrest, Coral Gables, Coconut Grove. Now maybe a little bit more South Miami also because it's getting so much popularity now. So those are if you want to stay here, if you want to stay in
So we've been in South Miami
area.
forever, and we see that's what's happening. Pinecrest started pushing and pushing, and the farther away you were from Pinecrest, the least it would cost. The more closer, it would get expensive. So now what's happened, this whole fringe on the edge is now caught up, and it's sort of like expanding Pinecrest into South Miami. So tell us about some of your passions as far as leadership, and as far as I understand you do some things with animals.
Oh, yes. Yes. Well, I love dogs. So it started with my son, who's working with me now. But when he was in high school, his volunteer project was fostering dogs from a local rescue where we got our dog. Our dog that was rescued with the mom. He was a baby. He was born underneath a deck in a house. They rescued him and we got him. So that's how we came in contact with this rescue organization called Pets in Distress. And so we started fostering dogs for them. So we did that for his all 4 years in high school.
What is that like when you go and you have this dog, right, who's not used to you, not used to the surroundings? How do you manage that so that the behavior is acceptable?
Well, they're very good. We didn't have too many problems with one of them was a little, but usually we just took care of them like he was one more of the family. If we had an issue, they did have trainers that would come to the house, so they would help us with the behavior.
We talked about the dogs, not children, but
yeah, I wish they had a trainer for children, right? The worst part wasn't that. For me, it was getting attached to the dogs. At the beginning, I would cry every time they would go when they get adopted. But now, afterwards, I was like, well, I was happy that they were getting a loving home, because these people were very, very picky in getting the adopted.
Speaking of that, I want to do a shout out for Miami-Dade County Animal Services. They need people to adopt pets, please.
Yes.
They're full capacity and they're working passionately. And the answer is we have to adopt more dogs and get those sterilized. I know it's a long-term process.
Yes.
We have about 3 minutes left. All right, I'm going to go over a couple things. You have certifications, seller representative specialist. You're a residential real estate specialist. You are a real estate negotiation expert. That's pretty nifty. And you specialize in the luxury market.
Right.
So, but you were involved in the PTA for a while.
Yes.
So you have the dogs, you have the PTA, and then you have this brilliantness that you have your MBA in that work. And then yet you're very involved with children. Tell us about that.
Well, I left my job, like I said, for my kids. So that's how I feel about the children's education in general. So since my kids were little, I was involved in the PTA. I ended up being PTA president for elementary, middle, and high school for my children. So I was always very, very involved, and I still am. Like I work as a substitute teacher sometimes here because I really want to be involved in the schools here as well, even though I don't have the kids there anymore.
So we know the little kids, they're watching us all the time. So your children have learned from that.
Oh, yes, they know. I had friends that said, oh, no, my kids don't want me in the school. My kids can't say anything. So, they don't have a say if I'm in their school or not.
So I'm sure that on your journey, there have been people that have helped you, maybe some mentors or people that are confidants of yours. What I'd like you to do is be able to look into the blue camera over here, and I want you to talk to them, if you would. Right? They can be still here or they can be past. And if you want to mention by name, that would be wonderful. This is your opportunity.
Oh.
All right.
Well, thank you. I don't know. Thank you to everybody that had helped me. My mom, who just passed away recently, unfortunately, that always believed in me, and other people that I met when I moved here, because I moved here only 20 years ago, and they guided me and helped me, and the other parents in the schools that have always supported me, and my children, the teachers, everybody everybody that I've met have always been very, very kind. I have no bad words to say about anybody.
You're passionate about your work,
Yes.
your children, and then their friends who say, look at my mom over there.
Yes.
So congratulations to you, Ana Pol from Pol Realty.
Thank you.
Well done. Congratulations. And we're going to look right in the red camera there, and I'm going to say, folks, thank you for joining us. And if you need any help with real estate, right on the website, on those videos, is Anna's website address. Again, take care of yourselves and your family. Have a good day.